Hey guys, I'm Kalilah Reynolds, and it's now time for Money Mondays, JA, brought to you in partnership with Proven Wealth. Well, just like I told you about a month ago, Sagicor has now launched a new class of shares in its Select Fund. The new Class C shares will track the Jamaica Stock Exchange's new Manufacturing and Distribution Index. Now, I know several of you are confused about this. My DMs have been flooded with people just asking to clarify. So that's why I'm here. So back in June, Sagicor launched Select Fund. It was a very successful initial public offering following on the success of the Wigton Wind Farm IPO. Now, Select Fund was an innovative product for Jamaica, offering the opportunity to own shares in all the companies listed on the JSE's financial index for just $1 a share. That's less than 1 cent US. In fact, you can get 10 shares for 7 cents US. Now, the way that Select Fund was designed, they have 5 different classes of shares. You have Class A, B, C, D, and E. Class A is a single management share held by Sagicor Investments Jamaica to basically keep the other classes in check, while classes B to E are supposed to track different indices on the JSE. And I suggest you watch the Money Mondays episode on indices. It's called New Index to Track Your Stocks, where I explain what is an index and all about the JSE's new Manufacturing and Distribution Index. So back in June, when Select Fund first came out, the JSE only had one industry-specific index, and that's the Financial Index, which itself is still fairly new. That was only launched in March of this year. So even though Select Fund had this structure where different classes of shares could track different indices, in reality, there was only one index it could track. Now that the JSE has launched the M&D Index, Manufacturing and Distribution, Select Fund is finally able to offer Class C shares to track that index as well. And there's still more room for 2 more classes of shares to track 2 more industry indices, whatever they may be, and whenever they are finally launched. The Select F M&D is opening with the same terms that Select F Financial opened with. They're offering up to 4 billion shares at $1 each, and they plan to use the funds raised to buy up shares in companies listed on the Manufacturing and Distribution Index. Just like Select F Financial as well, they've also started with 1 billion shares owned by Sagicor Sigma Investment Fund. So those of you who are Sigma clients, you're already indirectly invested via Sigma. There are 30 companies on the M&D index. So with Select Fund M&D, you get to invest in all 30 at once. The main advantage of this is that it's much cheaper and you get to spread out your risk, as opposed to if you were heavily invested in just 1 or 2 of the companies in the sector. If that one or those 2 companies you bought do poorly, you could lose some money. But when you invest in a fund like this, if 1 or 2 do poorly and the others are doing well, then they compensate for the ones that didn't. The disadvantage, though, and people said this about Select Fund Financial as well, is that when individual companies on the index do very well, you may not see the full benefit. So some people were saying, why buy Select F Financial when I could just buy shares in NCB? Because NCB alone took up nearly 40% of the fund. And in fact, the top 4 companies on the index took up some 80% of the fund. So even though theoretically you're more diversified because it's a couple dozen companies, if anything happens to one of those 4 companies, it would affect the performance of the entire fund. So with that said, I was very curious to see the weighting for Select F M&D. Yeah, it's 30 companies, but how much weight does each have? And FYI, the weighting is determined by the company's market capitalization. So for example, Wisynco is the most heavily weighted company on the M&D index. They have nearly $90 billion worth of shares out there, and that makes up 18% of the index. Compared to, say, Fontana, it's a smaller company which has $10 billion worth of shares, so they're only 2% of this particular index. Now, the good thing about M&D compared to financial is that this industry is more evenly split. It's not so top heavy like financial. Like I said, Wisynco is the top weighted, followed by Caribbean Cement and Grace Kennedy, both with 14% each. And together, those top three make up just under half of the index. The other thing I was looking out for in this prospectus is how the industry has performed over the past 5 years and how it's expected to perform in the coming years. Now get this, over the past 5 years, according to the prospectus, the companies on this index grew by 512%. So if this fund had existed 5 years ago and you had put $100,000 into it, it would now be worth more than $500,000. And that's even better, actually, than the financial sector's performance, which grew by over 300% over the same period. Now, the projections are for the M&D companies to continue growing. At the end of December, the fund would be worth about $5.2 billion. And Sagicor is projecting those same shares will be worth $6.7 billion in 5 years. That's a growth of just under 30%, which is still pretty strong. And there's also dividend income. That's projected to grow from $39 million now to $105 million by 2023. And their dividend policy is to pay out 90% of the dividends they receive to shareholders. By the way, they're basing these projections on the improvements in the economy. So broad details now. If you're considering investing in this fund, the minimum investment is 1,000 Jamaican dollars. That's about $7 US. That will get you 1,000 shares. The offer opens on November 20, so you have a little time to get it together. The scheduled close date is December 4, but it's a first-come, first-served basis. So if the offer is fully subscribed before that, they will close early. Don't wait until December 4 to try and buy shares. Look at JMMB. They just raised the biggest amount ever raised locally, $10 billion, and they closed early. So money is out there. If you're using a broker other than Sagicor, such as Proven Wealth, you want to get your application in even earlier because it will take a little bit more time to process. Sagicor says they'll start accepting applications tomorrow. That's Tuesday, the 12th of November. So you can take your application to your broker and they'll submit it to Sagicor. Oh, and for the record, a lot of you have been asking if I bought shares in Select Fund Financial, does that mean that I automatically have shares in the new Select Fund? No, you don't. This is a separate fund. All right. So coming up now on Taking Stock for this evening, the Prime Minister's historic 9-day trip to China. We're talking about trade relations with the global superpower and how this is already shaping Jamaica's future. And then the analysts weigh in on Select Fund's new offer, JMMB's early closing, NCB's earnings, and more. That's it for this episode of Money Mondays JA, brought to you by Proven Wealth. Thanks for watching. I'm Kalilah Reynolds. Follow me on Instagram at Kalilah Ray and subscribe to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Kalilah Ray. Like and share this video and comment below. See you later.